So, hey, Bill Gross here, and I'm here with a friend and a colleague and a local attorney. And you're going to find, I guess, a local farmer here in the Pico, Los Angeles area, attorney Daren Schlecter. Welcome, Daren.
Hey, Bill. Thanks for having me today.
Good. And so we're in COVID lockdown environment today. I've got the virtual background. I'm working at my home office. You're working at your office. We got the COVID chic look going on here in your office. So
That's right.
tell me a little bit about your background. You're an attorney. Where'd you grow up, and how did you become an attorney?
Yeah, so I'm an LA native, born and raised in Sherman Oaks. Went to law school in Orange County, where I externed for a bankruptcy judge, which kind of dovetailed later on into my practice. Worked for some small firms. Our last downturn around 2009, 2010, saw the writing on the wall. And about 10 years ago, almost to the day, May 2010, started my own firm, not farm, but firm. Farm came later, and focusing on primarily at that time, consumer bankruptcy, some business and real estate disputes over time, all in Century City. My firm's in Century City, but I serve clients now, not just locally, but nationally and sometimes internationally in the bankruptcy, business and real estate sectors. Most of my clients now are commercial / business clients on the debtor or creditor side. So anytime I'm trying to collect a business debt or deal with a company that's going through business troubles, especially now, it's become even more relevant. And I'm also a mediator here in the Central District of California on the bankruptcy mediation panel. And more recently, I was installed to be a part of a task force by the Chief Bankruptcy Judge, Judge Tai, to examine a recent legislation by Congress, a Small Business Reorganization Act, which was then modified by the CARES Act, which affected everything from payroll and PPP, but also had bankruptcy provisions that increased debt limits for small businesses to be able to file and have access to the bankruptcy courts.
So here Congress is issuing law after law after law, and each one of them changes the prior stuff faster than you guys can really figure it out, I would think.
Yeah, there's, I'm definitely at the front here in terms of having access to the players in the bankruptcy field, from everyone from the United States trustee to the bankruptcy judges, for which I'm very thankful for, and how it's going to play and affect the economy in the near, mid, and short term. Because what I've experienced over the last 60, 70 days is there are a lot of inquiries, a lot of people asking, whether bankruptcy is the right option for you. I usually start with the proposition that it's not an option because of either cost or expense, or, there are non-bankruptcy options. But it's certainly been a doozy in terms of seeing how it's going to apply and play out in terms of, companies that don't get SBA loans, or companies that can't turn things around because of stay-at-home orders, or companies that have possible business interruption claims, but by the time they get resolved, they're not able to catch up with the cash flow or liquidity event. So a lot of state courts right now are, as are closed, unfortunately, but bankruptcy courts don't require physical appearances due to the laws, but they're continuing to do business by phone because they really are the last bastion of access to the legal system, especially now.
So here in LA County, I focus in real estate, legal and probate real estate, and the LA Superior Court building is physically closed, but for limited activities, getting ready, opening up for emergency activities. Regular hearings all pushed off to June 22nd. What's happening in bankruptcy court? So hearings are still being scheduled, but they're being done remotely, or what's going on?
Right. So in state court, unless there's an ex parte, as an emergency on both the civil and criminal level, everything's being put on the back burner. In bankruptcy court, because it's a court that is the ultimate court, I guess, of exigency, of need. There's still access. Things are being done telephonically, whether they're the meeting of creditor, administrative meetings, which I hear from a lot of my colleagues, have been going fairly smoothly, or court hearings. As to evidentiary hearings and situations where trials are necessary, unless my understanding is, unless things are an emergency because either a witness won't be available, or there's some other reason to go to trial, they're very much limiting in-person contact. And my understanding is that most of the judges who do their court calendars are also appearing by phone. They're not actually at the courthouse for the most part.
Right.
Yeah.
Which affects justice in a way, right? Not having that human interaction. It seems hard to say in 2020, but the reality is people are entitled to that face-to-face with a judge in a sense, right? To some level.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a concern of access to justice, but there's a balance between, the public health concern and national security versus, people's rights to the courts. This has never really happened before. I don't recall what the courts did 100 years ago with the Spanish influenza virus, but we're definitely in unprecedented times.
Yeah, and it seems like nobody really knows even what to anticipate, right? Because like in probate court, it's easy to say, oh, well, you'll just wait to get your house 6 months later. But somebody's got to pay the mortgage and pay the property taxes and pay the gardener, and there's a renter involved, and you can't evict, but the tenant is an heir, and so it does affect some people really financially. There's some real hardships going on in our world. Imagine bankruptcy too.
Yeah, it's definitely of concern because for the businesses who are still waiting on their PPP loan or other SBA funding, it's I don't know if they could stop the hemorrhaging, which is a serious concern, because as much as it benefits me, in a pecuniary sense, there's also the question of is this 2008 or is this 2008 times 11? Meaning we can see years worth of offloading of debt that's been accumulated over the last 10 years since the last cycle, with kind of a reminder of how consumer focused this and based this economy is. So it's definitely a concern of what's going to happen, but with the leadership that we have at the helm in the Central District, I'm not concerned about it, because we're definitely proactive and at the front lines in terms of doing what's necessary to work day and night to get through this.
So if I said to you, what's your level of certainty about where things are headed? 9 or 10 being where you were maybe 2 months ago and kind of saw where the market was headed, and 1 being maybe the day we shut down or the day we're in there. Where do you think we are in terms of certainty of what you anticipate going forward? Are we still
10 being the most certain or the least?
Yeah, let's say 10 being certain and 1 being completely uncertain.
I would probably say a 4 on that scale. It's really hard to catch the falling knife, and where we're at. I think, I'm optimistic because I think all challenges in capitalism, can be overcome. And I think we've been through a civil war, we've been through world wars, and we survived those things. And we also have been through pandemics. Because of the interconnectedness of the economy now, it's a very different macro and micro picture that we have here. I just think it's going to take a long time to see a recovery. And my conversations with people in the real estate sector, including you, and also commercial real estate, financial advisors, is that everyone's trying to develop creative strategies for dealing with this, because litigating claims in court is going to be twice as time consuming as it was before, because you have delays and the courts haven't been doing anything non-emergency for 70 days. So people are not going to see trials and outcomes and cases maybe into 2021, 2022, and it's just being pushed off. I would have liked to have seen it. Obviously, it was their business judgment. See state courts do what the bankruptcy courts did and try to at least keep the status quo, because that's really if you shut down bankruptcy courts, then we have a real problem. And so because of that, I would choose a 4 in terms of where things are going, and what my experience has been in terms of people waiting and seeing, and what I like to say is the status quo economy. So,
Now, on a personal level, I believe you have one of the most diverse farms in the Pico Robertson area. True or false?
yeah, true, and it's a labor of love. It keeps me sane when I'm not when I'm not working the billable hour. I'm working and tilling the earth. It's called High Garden, and you can follow us on Instagram, High Garden 18, and it's just a dream to have that connection. And I think, especially as a lawyer, having hobbies and other things that are not about the recent Supreme Court case or things like that make for interesting table talk, and as unique as you have mentioned.
So High Garden is what? Give me a 30-second or a minute description of what is it? Because you gave it to me and I couldn't believe it. So I'm like, just want to hear it again.
Yeah, and just for the record, it's CHAI, like high, like life in Hebrew. So it is. We grow a variety of medicinal herbs, like basil, rosemary, thyme, those things. Citrus, passion fruit. I have. There's an idea called succession planning, which is the efficiency of having things always planted. So I have wheat and corn and all sorts of things growing. So it's fun to see things grow as an
More
entrepreneur.
things you can mention in one conversation, all growing at the same time here in Pico Robertson.
What's that?
I said more different varieties than you can care to mention, all being grown here locally in Pico Robertson
Yeah, I mean, and
on your roof.
yeah, on my roof. When I was working at home, one of the benefits of working from my home office was being able to just walk out to my rooftop and literally be in a farm. But it was also somewhat distracting because then I would farm instead of work. So
Do you ever, I don't think you're old enough to remember the TV show Green Acres. Ever see Green Acres?
I've heard of the show, but I don't know if I ever watched it. Yeah.
You might watch the opening of the show. Might ring true for you. I don't know. Just there. Well, look, Daren, it's fun. I know we've had a chance to work together here, and it's fun to work in court and do some business, make some money. But it's also kind of fun to learn about more about you. And I think if we do this again, love to see you in action on the High Garden 18. You wear overalls? You do that, or what's that look like?
Well, I'll send you a picture. Before as I told you before we went on air, I just got a haircut this morning, but I had a 70-day beard, which was pretty intense. I have the cowboy hat and the axe and the machete and some farm equipment, but I still need to get the pickup truck and the overalls. So, and I have cowboy boots.
You have a John Deere on top of there. You get it right on.
Well, we haven't gone that far, but since you're in the business of getting good real estate deals, maybe I'll be able to get that ranch one day.
I'll work on that for you. Okay, look, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for your time. So if anybody's interested, if somebody is a client, bankruptcy client, commercial bankruptcy is really your specialty. Attorney referrals, I imagine, fiduciaries, corporate clients. How would they reach you?
You can go to schlecterlaw.com. That's my website. The office phone number is 310-553-5747. Cells 310-944-8283. I have articles published that more on like the mechanical side and some bankruptcy related stuff. But a lot right now, what I'm experiencing also is, obviously I represent business debtors and creditors, but sometimes they're smaller, mom and pop, unfortunately, or smaller businesses and individuals that have to determine, what impact the impact of corporate debt is on a personal level. So starting with the proposition that filing for bankruptcy is not their first or necessarily best option, then I work backward in a kind of contrarian way to examine what all their options are, including the possibility of a buyout. I've been trying to keep up to date on, bankruptcy alternatives, and I was on a webinar earlier about M&A and buyouts and it's what are called assignment for the benefit of creditor. So looking at all the options, seeing what's best for ultimately the client, and approaching it with a contrarian, perspective. So.
Great. I'll put your website and office phone number in the post below. And thank you so much for your time today. I really enjoyed this.
Thank you, Bill. Great questions.
Okay.